Chapter 9. Making a Profit at Live Events. Live events are festering cesspools of wasted money for most creators. Most creatives know live shows are important for their career, but don't know how to use them to make money or to grow their brand. It ends up being a financial burden instead of a lucrative, money-making opportunity. The good news is that it's very possible to make money and grow your brand at live shows. If you can do it right, live shows are the absolute best opportunity to quickly build and maintain a passionate audience that will buy from you. That's the beauty of live events, but it takes incorporating much of what we've talked about previously into the live event experience. It means thinking about live events differently than you do now, and understanding how to make the live event experience work for you. Live events are the easiest way to build an audience as well. People are a lot nicer and more engaging in person than they are online. Since you are directly in front of customers with your wares, you can quickly turn somebody from a cold prospect into a warm lead, and even convince them to buy in a single interaction. The best thing about live events is that everybody who passes your table is a potential customer. They have all paid to get in and decided to walk through your area. In doing so, they have self-selected themselves as being interested in what you have to offer. Now the trick is just convincing them you are the right vendor for their needs. Before you read through this section, I highly recommend going back to take notes on the sales funnel, pitching, and mailing list lessons we discussed earlier. I'm not going over them again in this section, and they are critical to your success at live shows. Getting your mindset right. The most important aspect of live show success is to get in the right mindset before you walk into the door. It's critical that you are prepared to deal with people for 10 hours a day, for the entire length of the show. Live events will drain you. You need to have a full battery before you walk into the convention center, and you will need time to recharge that battery before the following day. Everybody has different tricks when it comes to getting in the right mindset. It could mean psyching yourself up in a car for 30 minutes, finding an anchor point with people you know, or picturing everybody naked. Whatever your secret, you need to find the right headspace in order to be successful. All the tactics in the world won't work unless you are mentally ready to employ them. I know you will want to curl up in a ball and hide after your first unsuccessful pitch, but you have to keep going. Just remember, home is just a few hours away. However, you paid a lot of money to be at the show, and you need to make the most out of it. It's way better to head home with a big wad of cash in your pocket than to have nothing but a hoarse voice to show for your effort. Make it an experience. People go to shows to have fun. They could be sitting at home eating bonbons, but instead they chose to leave their house and come to your event. Every single person at your event has overcome a tremendous amount of laziness just to be there. They could be watching a movie, doing ceramics, eating at a nice restaurant, or engaging in any number of activities, but instead they have chosen to spend their time with you. As such, if we want to be successful, then we must craft an experience that engages our ideal customer. The more we design our booths to maximize the enjoyment of the fans, the more successful we will be exhibiting at live events. If people come up to you, have a good experience, and enjoy your products, they will be more likely to buy what you have to offer. Make buying from you fun. People want to buy things. We are a consumerist society. The people at the shows are your perfect customers, because in walking through the door, they've already been primed to buy even if they don't want to buy your stuff per se. They are looking for something that connects them emotionally with the show itself. Whether it is a book, a CD, a movie, or a necklace, people want to look at the stuff they buy and positively remember the experience of being at the show. After all, customers can buy necklaces anywhere, usually for cheaper than you are making them. They can type in a search on Amazon and find a charm just like yours at half the price. But it's not about that for customers at live events. It's about emotional connection. Have you ever been on vacation? Every souvenir is super overpriced. no matter if it's wine, jewelry, or ugly hats. Logically, you are crazy to buy any souvenirs on vacation because they jack up the prices. Yet we all do it. Why? It's because we connect those overpriced trinkets to a happy experience. The better the experience, the more our connection grows and the more that ugly hat is worth. The same is true with live events. The reason customers buy from you is because they made an emotional connection they will remember forever. They can go home and give their daughter a gift from the show. They can read your book and remember the positive experience of meeting you. They can hang your print and relive memories of the awesome time they had for the rest of their lives. Attract your perfect customers. When planning your booth, it's important to think about the overall experience of the customer. This isn't just about your persona either. Yes, you need to be engaging. You need to smile, laugh, and put your product in somebody's hand. Your pitch needs to be perfect. You need to know the exact triggers to pull to get somebody to buy. But it doesn't end there. You need to cater your table in every way to attract your perfect customer. This means setting up your table so it stands out, using bright colors to draw the eye, and implementing signage that drives traffic. It means creating eye-catching products and making con exclusives so that people connect your brand with the positive emotional experience of the convention itself. It means offering your customers something they can't get anywhere else. Your job is to create an experience so enticing for your ideal customer that they will seek you out at every show they attend, because you have crafted an experience they love. This takes a little while to get right, which is all the more reason you need to get started right away. When Wannabe Press first started, we didn't have our green banner or mascot. We didn't give away free prints or buttons at shows. We waited until we knew our customer, knew what they wanted, and then we pounced. However, we didn't delay in starting to craft the perfect experience. We began work on that immediately. We went to our first con and offered free crappy drawings so that people saw our personality and got a con exclusive. We laughed and smiled. We pitched our books, yes, but we also left people with a positive experience they could treasure forever. People still come up and ask about our crappy drawings even today. The experience you provide will improve over time as you become more comfortable at live shows and better understand your customer, but it's important to start crafting the experience before you even start exhibiting, so every customer has the best chance of falling in love with your brand at first sight. Use your unfair advantage. I've heard writers complain about not being able to sell at shows ever since I started attending them so many years ago. Writers can't draw, so there is no way for them to sell originals, prints, or commissions, which is what people want at shows, right? If that's true, then why do artists complain about not having books on their table? If people only wanted art, then all artists should kill it at every show, shouldn't they? And what about publishers? They didn't even create the books. They just stamp their logo on other people's creations, don't they? How can they succeed? Nobody at shows wants to buy a book, unless the creator of the book is sitting there and signing, right? If you've ever thought any of these questions, you have properly diagnosed a major issue in making money at conventions, which is that artists, writers, and publishers must operate differently to succeed. Writers, artists, and publishers all have different unfair advantages at shows. An unfair advantage is what allows you to succeed in any given situation. It is something that cannot be copied or replicated by others. In order to sell at live shows, it's important to focus on your specific unfair advantage. The unfair advantage of an artist. The unfair advantage of an artist is that they have a visceral, immediate connection to their audience. An artist can sell prints, art books, originals, and commissions at shows. They are an immediate draw for customers. We are visual creatures, and visual art speaks for itself. For writers, people need to invest in the story, but for artists, everything they need to connect with their audience is front and center. However, an artist is stuck working on a couple projects at a time. The work of an artist takes longer than the work of a writer. An amazingly fast artist can finish 1 page a day from beginning to end, which means the maximum output of the artist is 365 pages a year. Since the average graphic novel is 100 to 150 pages, that means an artist can create a maximum of 3 graphic novels a year. Even though that is a ton of completed work, it pales in comparison to the writer. The unfair advantage of a writer. The writer's unfair advantage is they can create a massive amount of work in different mediums at the same time. While the artist is stuck in visual mediums, a writer can expand into prose or even write movies and television. While it takes an artist many months to draw a book, a writer can finish a 5-issue graphic novel in a couple weeks max. A prolific writer can finish an issue a day, which means a prolific writer can produce 365 issues in a given year. If the average graphic novel is 5 or 6 issues, the writer can crank out 60 to 70 graphic novels a year. That's 20 times more than the artist. If a potential customer doesn't like one visual style, a writer can present a book with a different visual style and hope to make a sale. An artist is limited by their personal visual range, but a writer can work with many different artists of varying styles. Additionally, if somebody does not like comic books, a writer can show novels or even movie scripts. If a writer can focus on the variety of their table, they can sell as much as an artist or even more. If writers focus on mimicking the unfair advantage of an artist, they will never be able to compete. I often see writers with only one book on their table, wondering why they aren't making the same types of sales as an artist. But their lackluster sales should make complete sense given what we now know, right? They aren't making sales because they haven't leveraged their unfair advantage. They're trying to mimic how an artist makes money, even though a writer generates sales in a completely different manner. While an artist can make money at a show selling a single book, along with prints and commissions, a writer needs to focus on their own unfair advantage in order to succeed. The unfair advantage of a publisher. The publisher has a different unfair advantage than both the writer and artist. A publisher's unfair advantage is the ability to put out a massive amount of books from many different creators. If a potential customer doesn't like one creator or style, they can shift gears and show them a completely different person's work. A company like Simon & Schuster publishes over 2,000 titles a year. They don't create any of those works in-house. They hire out writers or acquire the rights to properties, then edit and release those books. They own the means of production and can push out a massive volume of titles. What they lose in the creation of the books they make up for, in the variety of books they publish. No matter how hard a writer or artist works, they could never finish that many works in any given year, at least not publishable ones. So, the publisher's unfair advantage is in the variety and volume of creators they have in their catalog, and their ability to leverage those creators to build their brand. The problem is that most creators pine for the unfair advantage of somebody else. Or worse, they try to emulate the unfair advantage of another type of creative. If a writer tries to sell a single book instead of focusing on variety, then they are not utilizing their unfair advantage. With one book, a writer can never hope to make as much as an artist. An artist, in contrast, needs to focus on their unique style and understand that their advantage lies in people committing to their art style. The more art they have on their table that is unique to them, the better chance they have of being successful. This might include a book, but it can also include originals, prints, and commissions. For a publisher, the unfair advantage lies in having a massive amount of choice and enticing readers with the variety of creators they have available. 1, 2, or even 10 books might not be enough to utilize that unfair advantage. Utilizing your unfair advantage is one of the keys to make money at shows. If you can utilize your unfair advantage, then you have a better chance of killing it at live shows. The question then becomes, what is your unfair advantage? Become an attendee first. Creators don't start going to cons as exhibitors right off the bat. Everyone I've ever met started going as an attendee. It only makes sense. Attending cons is a great way to meet people and gather market research without investing money on an expensive table. However, most creators don't understand con etiquette when they get started. There are rules you need to follow to make the most of a con. If you can nail these, you'll be well on your way to making incredible connections that can last a lifetime. If you don't, you will become nothing but a forgettable footnote. Use social media ahead of time. The more points of contact you have with somebody before an event, the most likely they are to remember you at the convention. So start before the convention even begins. Favorite things they say on social media. Tweet at them. Be engaged. Just like above, this isn't about pitching. It's about engaging. Buy something from exhibitors you talk to. Some creators make 50% or more of their income from attending shows. They aren't there to have fun. They are there to work. If you are sitting by their table for a half hour, people are less likely to stop by their booth. Therefore, they are losing money. Every minute you take of their time costs money. Which is fine. We all expect questions. Most of us relish them, but time is money. If you like the creator, buy something from their table to show them you value their time and advice. I always tell people that $20 buys 5 minutes of my undivided attention. When I was attending cons, I made sure to bring $200 to buy time from people I respected. I wanted to make a good impression with them, and buying from their work showed I valued their advice. This also solves a problem for you. If you get advice from a creator, you want to know if that advice is quality, right? You'll only know that by testing out their products. If the product is great, then you know the advice is solid. If it's crappy though, you should probably discount it and move on to another creator. Ask intelligent questions about their work. Creators bend over backwards for fans. If you've read somebody's work, let them know before you start asking questions. If you do that, you will get much more out of your interactions than if you just start pelting them with questions. Don't say something generic either. Your questions need to be specific. Everybody says, "I like your work." If you can say, "I really liked when you did X. What was the reason behind that?" it's going to make you stand out from the crowd. Give them something to read later. I love getting handouts and books from people. I read everything that people give me. It's impossible to read anything until I get home and decompress for a couple days. I just don't have the bandwidth to critique anything until I've had a chance to recharge. Giving notes is a part of my brain that just doesn't function at shows. If I tell you to email me later though, I mean it. I'm not blowing you off. Please respect that. If you get indignant, I'm just going to toss what you gave me in the trash. I don't have time for that kind of attitude. Email them later. I tell every creator I meet to email me their questions and I will gladly answer them. Do you know how often people take me up on that offer? Never. I've received a total of 10 emails this year, out of thousands of people I've told to email me. If you are a creator and somebody tells you to get in touch with them, do it. Tuck their card away in your wallet, wait a couple of weeks and then email your questions. You'll be shocked at the response you receive because nobody else is doing it. I can only devote a couple minutes to somebody at a show. After a show, I can give so much more. Plus, I can really think about the answers to your questions. If you actually take the initiative and email creators, they will notice. Maybe not all of them, but enough of them to make a difference in your career. Also, if you pitch somebody a project, keep it brief and informative. Many creators attend shows to find artists and writers to work on their projects. Cons are a great way to put a face to an email and quickly move a project into production. However, you must be prepared when meeting with somebody. Exhibitors are very busy and extremely tired. They've been working the con floor for hours. They don't have the energy for long, rambling soliloquies. If you meet somebody interested in working with you, be succinct. Make sure to have a budget in mind, a quick pitch of your project, and a timeline in place for the start of production. Additionally, prepare a one-page document containing all the pertinent information so they can review it after the convention. Then decide with them when to follow up to talk about your project. Your entire pitch should take less than 2 minutes. Just because somebody isn't jumping for joy at your pitch doesn't mean they aren't interested. It might just mean they are brain dead from hours on the con floor. Join the after party. Every big convention has a bar where exhibitors go after the floor closes. If you can find that spot, you can talk to artists and authors when their guard is down. Just remember to be considerate. This isn't a time for pitching. It's a time for mingling. Standard cocktail party rules apply. Show up regularly. The more cons you attend, the more seriously exhibitors will take you. There is a cumulative effect that builds the more often people see you at conventions. If you go to enough shows, creators will take you more seriously, especially if you've completed more and more quality projects with each interaction. This is because the brain forms connections between the number of times it sees a person and its perceived friendship level with them. You can actually become friends with somebody just by being present enough times and having positive interactions with them on each occasion, just like we talked about before. Even if you don't have success at your first show, traction builds exponentially over time as people interact with you more and more. If you show up at conventions long enough, you will inevitably move from attendee to colleague to friend in the eyes of many people who can help catapult your career forward. If you follow these tips, you will be much more successful in meeting people at cons and making positive connections with them. The more times you attend shows and talk with creators, the stronger those connections will become, and the further you will get in your career. Speak to sell. One of the most underutilized secrets to succeeding at live events is that speaking on panels and giving workshops helps you sell more, not less. Even though you are away from your booth for an hour, you make up for the loss of potential sales with the quality of leads gained from your speaking engagements. This logic is rooted deep in the principles of your sales funnel. The goal of your sales funnel is to get people to know, like, and trust you, so that they are more likely to buy from you. At your table, you can only talk with somebody for a couple of minutes. In a panel room, though, you have the undivided attention of your audience for an hour. This allows for a much deeper engagement with the people in your panel than you could ever get at your table. In fact, speaking on panels gives you the deepest engagement possible with attendees, while helping you stand out from other exhibitors. Panels help attendees develop a personal connection with your brand, fueling their desire to buy your product. Additionally, panels allow you to leverage the convention's authority and transfer it to yourself. You have been chosen to represent the convention by its organizers. Since attendees respect the authority of the convention, that authority rubs off on you when you are on a panel. On top of using the authority of the convention, panel attendees commit to your brand by agreeing to sit in on your panel instead of walking the convention floor or attending another event. As you sit on the panel and deliver valuable advice to the audience, you build up your likability with them, and because you have given them something without asking for anything in return, attendees develop reciprocity with your brand. The size of the audience builds up your social proof as an expert who knows what they are doing. By simply sitting on panels, you've hit 5 of the 6 essential buying triggers without lifting a finger. So, how do we get onto panels? I used to think it was an impossible task. There were so many people better qualified than me to speak about creating and selling books. However, I quickly learned that most people don't like presenting on panels. They either think it's a waste of their time or have a crippling fear of public speaking. I couldn't believe it, but I wasn't about to argue. If you want to start booking yourself onto panels, I've developed several strategies to maximize this very lucrative part of live events. Volunteer as a moderator. The best way to get on a panel is by moderating one. To do that, you need to contact the event organizers and fill out a panel request form. You are responsible for finding the panelists beforehand and picking the topic. Organizers have tons of time slots to fill in their programming schedule, so if you put together a great list of panelists and an interesting topic their audience will enjoy, there is a great chance they will book your panel. Volunteer as a panelist. Even if you don't book a panel beforehand, it's always a good idea to find the panel organizer when you get to the show and ask if they have any openings you can fill. Often, people have to cancel at the last minute, and you play hero by helping them in their hour of need. The easiest way to start booking panels is to simply walk into the room a couple minutes before a panel starts and ask the moderator if they have room for another panelist. You would be surprised how often this works if you carry yourself with confidence and have a smile on your face. Even if it doesn't work the first time, it will work eventually if you ask enough people. If you aren't comfortable walking right up to the moderator in the panel room, check out the panel schedule when you first get to the convention, figure out which panels you qualify for, and then find the moderator's booth. It takes a little investigation, but you can often find their booths if you cross-reference their names on social media. Many exhibitors post their booth numbers on Twitter or Facebook before the con starts. If you can't find it on their social media feed, check out the con's website. Most cons have a web page dedicated to their floor plan and exhibitor list. Once you know the moderator's booth number, make it a point to find them before their panel and make a connection with them, so they will consider booking you for future events. Start small. The most reliable way to book speaking engagements is to start small. Small shows are always desperate for programming help. They never have enough staff to devote to booking panels. Therefore, if you ask small shows to host a panel, they are often more than happy for you to take that responsibility off their shoulders. I began speaking at a small local show called Long Beach Comic Con many years ago. My role in their programming grew along with the size of the show. I started by hosting one panel, and now I organize 4 to 6 panels for them a year. Building on that experience, I was then able to contact other shows and use Long Beach as a reference point. Each time I spoke at a new convention, it gave me access to bigger and bigger shows, including San Diego Comic-Con. Speaking engagements are often the last piece to come together in a successful con strategy. You must be known by exhibitors and con organizers alike before you can book panels consistently, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't start immediately. Just remember, speaking isn't only about fun. It's also about moving people down your funnel in a calculated and effective way. If you book speaking engagements with that mentality, it can be a very lucrative way to build your audience. Chapter 7. Your Con Survival Kit. A con kit is an essential part of any exhibitor's convention prep. A con kit is simply a pre-prepared bag of essentials you create before leaving your house. Most items in your kit stay there permanently. I keep my con kit in my car at all times, so I never have to remember it. Every few months I take stock and refill as needed. Otherwise, I don't even think about it. Putting together your con survival kit. Every exhibitor has a different style to their kit, but there are certain things common among everybody on the con circuit. Add or subtract anything you want, but if you start with these essentials, you'll have a great base when you reach the convention floor and never freak out because you forgot something. Here are the things that I consider essential to my con survival kit. Food. The most important part to maintaining a positive attitude at a con is an adequate stash of food. The lunch grumpies are a real thing. They hit congoers and exhibitors alike every day around 12:30. Your choices are either to leave your booth and seek out food or bring it with you. You can buy food on the convention floor, but it's overpriced and terrible for you. It's much better for your wallet and stomach to visit a grocery store and pick up some sandwiches, fruit. I prefer grapes. They pack a burst of sugar and liquid without messing up your hands, nuts, granola bars, and a big jug of water. The sandwiches and fruit are one of the only parts of your kit that you can't keep in your car at all times. The rest of the food might get a little hot, but at least it will be edible. Medical supplies. If you go to enough cons, you will get injured. You should always have Band-Aids of varying sizes, Neosporin and gauze on hand to mend any injuries that happen to you or your table mates. You also want to have some aspirin and any other prescription meds you might need to get through the day. I travel with a couple of knee wraps too. If you have any joint problems, ACE bandages or braces are a must. Medical supplies also include any hygiene products like tampons you might need either now or in the future. Even if you won't need them for your next con, you will need them eventually. Hand sanitizer. Cons are full of disease. You'll be interacting with tons of people every day. If you don't have hand sanitizer, you will get sick. You will probably get sick anyway. Grooming products. You'll probably be out late after the con closes, or at the very least feel haggard at some point during a long con day. When that happens, it's always nice to splash some water on your face, comb your hair, put on some fresh deodorant, and touch up your makeup before you head back onto the floor. It can make you feel like a new person. If you can't get to the bathroom, then baby wipes are a convenient way to get a bit of relief while at your table. That momentary refreshment can turn your whole day around. I don't go back to my room after the convention floor closes. I head straight to the next event, so having a way to get ready for the evening at my table is essential. Toothbrush, toothpaste, or at least mouthwash make me feel like at least I tried a little bit, even if I didn't really. Ziploc baggies. Make sure all your leakable products are stowed safely in Ziploc bags so they don't destroy your entire kit. Bring a couple extras too, just in case. Surge protector and extension cord. You won't usually have power, but it's nice to have an extension cord and surge protector just in case you find a magical outlet somewhere. Battery pack. Since electricity costs money at cons, your electronics will inevitably die. That is a guarantee. Make sure to have an additional battery pack or flash charger ready so you can keep going without worrying about a dead battery. These need to be charged every night of the con to make sure they aren't dead when you need them. If you want to guarantee power at your table, aim for a 10,000 mAh or higher battery with extra cords. Cash. It's always good to have a small stash of cash in your con kit in case you don't get a chance to hit up an ATM. I always keep different denominations in my wallet since I go to so many cons. If you aren't a frequent exhibitor though, it's nice to have it in your kit so you don't forget. For some reason I settled on $140 equally split between 10s and 5s, but every exhibitor has a different amount they bring to cons. Scissor. There will be things to open at your table that require scissors. I fear cutting myself when I reach into my bag, so I bring rounded scissors like a child would use. I know that's a crazy fear, especially since rounded scissors can barely cut soft cheese, but I've almost stabbed myself too many times to risk anything sharper. Tape. Every con has things that need mending, merchandise that needs hanging, and broken things that need fixing. That's why tape is an essential part of any con kit. I recommend bringing multiple kinds: masking, duct, packing, and scotch. They each serve a different function, and you want to be sure to have the right tape for the right job. Art supplies. There are always a couple artists at every con who forget their brushes, and at least one author who runs out of Sharpies. You don't have to load your entire studio into your kit, but you should create a packet of essential supplies just in case the worst happens. Chair cushions and floor pads. Con floors are made of concrete and terrible on your legs. Con chairs are miserable for your back and butt. You will be standing and sitting all day on the worst surfaces imaginable. Chair cushions and floor pads can make that experience much easier to endure. Card reader. You need a card reader to take credit card payments. While you can manually punch in the card, the reader makes it so much easier for you and the customer. I currently use Square, but I've used PayPal in the past with great success too. Tablet for mailing list. Especially at a big convention, you want to have a separate tablet for your mailing list that isn't your phone. Your phone will be taking credit card payments, and it can only do one thing at a time. You want to make sure fans can sign up quickly and without waiting. Additionally, anything you can do to help prevent battery drain on your phone is a good thing. Needle and thread. If you don't want to look like a hobo when something tears, pack a needle and thread to fix any holes that pop up in either your table or your clothes. That's right. You have to worry about more than just your table at these conventions. Your clothes can tear too. When they do, it's not a pleasant experience. Having a needle and thread on hand is way better than trying to fix your clothes with tape or leaving it unattended for everybody to see. This is not an all-encompassing list. Your needs will differ over time and depending on what you sell. The con kit for an exhibitor booth is much different than for an artist table, and people who make pillows have different needs than those who sell books. This is only a starting point. Add and subtract as necessary. I know it feels like overkill, but it's better to have something and not need it than need something and not have it. Chapter 6. Setting up your table. In this chapter, I'm going to share with you how to set up your table for success, based on what I've learned from working over 100 convention tables over 4 years. Convention sales are won or lost before the first person passes your booth. They are decided before the doors even open. Whether you will make money or not is decided the moment you drag your stuff into the convention hall and set up your table. Most tables are a hot mess, so it's no wonder nobody buys from them. There is no order. There is no flow. It's just a bunch of stuff with no direction. If artists sell prints, there is an enormous wall for people to choose with dozens of options and no guidance. Often, artists construct edifices around them so elaborate you can barely see them at all. That's not inviting. Don't forget, it's your job to take your customer by the hand and give them an experience. A massive print wall isn't an experience, it's a nightmarish hellscape fraught with danger and filled with too many choices. A print wall seems great in theory, but in practice it overwhelms your clients. More importantly, it gives them no reason to connect with you. They don't have to interact. They don't have to engage. They just have to point. The opposite is true with an artist with a closed book of prints on their table. There is nothing to draw a customer's eye. There is nothing to focus their interest. There is no reason for them to stop unless they already know your work. The advantage of a print book is that customers have to stop and open it, but you still have to get them to your table. Luckily, there is a better way to set up your table, without any of that massive setup or monetary commitment, that builds interest with your ideal customer while forcing them to interact with you. I learned this method by walking the exhibit hall at dozens of cons and noticing how the successful artists differed from the mediocre ones. I found the common themes all of the big exhibitor booths had in common, and I reverse-engineered them to work at my booth. This method takes less than 30 minutes to set up, and can be scaled up to a full 10 by 10 exhibitor booth, or all the way down to a 3-foot table. Your 5 products. You need 5 products in total to make this table setup work. 2 best-selling items on either side of your table. 2 niche products behind them. A cheap or free product up front. Together, they create an alleyway from the front of the table right to you standing behind it. Your best-selling products. The most important products on your table are the best-selling items. If you don't know your best-selling items already, take some time to show your products to people and see which ones they are most likely to buy. Don't worry if you get this wrong at first, you can always change it later. Best-selling items usually outsell the rest of your table by a 3-to-1 margin or more. Since these products are now the focus of your table instead of hidden around other products, your ideal client can immediately develop a connection to them. This is also great for you. Now that you are focusing on a couple of products, you can order more of them, thus increasing your profit margins. Your niche products. Once you have your best-selling items locked in, it's time to set up your 2 niche products. These are placed behind your best sellers and closer to the middle of the table, so that people can only see them by stepping up to your booth. Remember, our goal is to sell the best sellers first. These niche products work in tandem with your best sellers and should only be used as a profit maximizer or to save a sale. If your best-selling products won't close a deal, then add these niche products into the mix to reinvigorate interest. Your freebie. The last product you need to include for a successful booth is your freebie, which lives at the middle of your table. These can be flyers, prints, buttons, or anything a person can easily pick up for little to no cost. When people look up from checking out your freebie product, they will see you front and center greeting them. That's because all of these products combine to form a pathway from the front of the table directly to your eye line behind it. The customer is not only drawn to your products, but also to you. Setting up your table in this manner forces more intimate interactions with more potential customers. The more interactions you have, the more sales you will make. Customers have an impossible time making a buying decision. If you feed them too many choices, they'll eventually give up and walk away. If you focus on maximizing sales of a few products, you will find that your overall sales increase, as do your margins. If for some reason customers don't want any of the products on your table, you can always guide them to the perfect piece tucked away in storage underneath your table. Those customers trust you more because you took the time to listen, and are thus more likely to buy from you. Splitting tables. I will split any table at any convention. I will split an 8x6 or even a 4-foot table to keep costs down. One time I even split a $20 table. There has never been a con where I wouldn't rather split a table than go it alone. Splitting tables is one of the best ways to maximize con sales while minimizing costs. I'm an anomaly in that respect. Most creatives have a problem splitting tables. They believe if they don't have a full table, they're somehow less of an exhibitor. Or that they need a full table because they have too much stuff to split one. Or because they don't want somebody taking their sales. These are all misplaced fears. Is there a chance you could make more money with a full table? Of course, but there are downsides and pitfalls to every situation. The key is to weigh the benefits with the drawbacks. When you are first starting out, the benefits to splitting tables are numerous. It behooves you to look into table splitting, even if you are further along in your career. The benefits extend beyond just saving money. That's not to say that saving money isn't a primary reason why I split as many tables as possible. Cost was the key reason I started splitting tables in the first place. Especially when you start out, the chances you'll make $300 back on a table are minimal. You probably don't even have enough inventory to make a $300 investment worthwhile. It's much more likely you'll make about $100 on a table, give or take. Even if you don't make any money, losing $100 is more palatable than losing $300. The benefits don't stop at saving money though. By splitting a table, you don't need to bring as much stuff to a convention. This is great for newbies, because you probably won't have very much inventory in the beginning. But even if you are experienced, this is a great way to identify your best sellers and niche products. It's amazing how innovative you become with limited space. I figured out my best-selling products specifically because I had a space issue. I've been splitting space since my first con, so it was always tricky to make my table shine. That limitation forced me to design my booth to maximize the sales of just a few products. Without that constraint, I never would have discovered how to set up my booth for maximum impact. Aside from sales, You also have somebody to watch your table if you need to run to the bathroom or just want to walk the floor. When you split a table, you can even practice each other's sales pitch and sell things for each other. There's nothing better than coming back to a table and being handed a wad of money from your booth mate. Yes, you can bring a helper to a convention instead and achieve the same goal, but then you are investing both your time and their time without defraying any of the cost. If you split a table with somebody, then both of you are invested in the same goal while also saving on the table cost. Then there's the companionship that comes along with splitting tables. Sometimes cons are slow, crappy, and lonely. It's nice to have somebody behind the table right next to you to share in your joys and pain. Yes, there are exhibitors on either side of you, but it's not the same. They are busy doing their own thing. When you split a table, you guys are a team, and that camaraderie is essential to keeping a positive mindset at conventions. Again, you could bring a helper instead of splitting a table, but you have to weigh the pros and cons of whether that extra cost is worthwhile. Splitting the table instead gets you almost the same result and saves you money. Splitting a table is also beneficial, because you can work together to refer ideal customers to each other. Not everyone is going to love your work. By splitting a table, you have somebody right next to you who can make a sale if a customer isn't feeling your work. If you split a table with the right person, your audiences will be very different. Instead of stealing sales, you can help find each other's ideal customer. I personally love tabling with people who have all ages material, because our wannabe press books are for mature readers. Therefore, anybody coming to my table and looking for all ages books is out of luck, but if I table with an all ages publisher, we can work in tandem to maximize sales. They send me their mature readers, and I send them my all ages ones. This way, we are both making sales without stepping on each other's toes. One of the main issues I run into with people who fear table splitting is that they don't want somebody ruining their sales. I have found the opposite to be true. When you split a table, it allows you to work together to make more sales. As a team, you can sell to more customers and make more money. If your work is different enough, then you can complement each other and increase your convention sales. This takes practice and time, but with the right table mate, you can really maximize sales while minimizing costs, and that is a beautiful thing. Setting up the rest of your table. Once you've honed your products and perfected your pitch, it's time to set up the rest of the table. This is the marketing aspect of exhibiting at a convention. It's not about salesmanship. It's about getting people's attention and driving them to your booth without saying a word. Your salesmanship and marketing work together to create an irresistible experience for your ideal customer. Your table drape. The first piece of crafting that experience is an eye-catching table drape. A table drape goes over your table and covers up all the ugly bits underneath, like overflow merchandise and your con kit. Many cons provide their own drape, but they are uniform across every table in the convention center. You don't want to be uniform. You want to stand out. In order to do that, you need to invest in your own table drape. The more unique the table drape, the more it attracts your ideal customer. You don't have to spend a fortune on a drape. Fabric stores have an incredible selection to choose from in every color and design under the sun. If you time it right, you can get an awesome deal on prints that stores want to unload. If you want to get fancy, you can order a custom pattern from Spoonflower for a very reasonable price. I use Spoonflower for all my table drapes. It ensures I get the perfect color and pattern to fit my needs. I'm willing to spend a little more to make sure I have a custom drape nobody else can mimic. Your banner. The next thing your table needs is a banner. Banners get very expensive on the high end, but they don't have to be pricey. You can order a cheap banner online for as little as $20 and hang it from PVC pipes you find at Home Depot using zip ties. I'm all about convenience though, which is why I bought a retractable banner. They take very little time to set up and immediately make you look like a pro. They are also very compact. Since I split my tables every chance I get, and usually don't have much space, retractable stands are the best option for me. Your product displays. Your booth also needs a display for your products. This can be as simple as a wire stand or as complicated as a homemade box. The display needs to fit with your overall aesthetic, raise your products off the ground, and entice people to interact with what you are offering them. Your marketing freebies. The final piece of marketing you need for your table is a collection of freebies. A freebie is something you hand out as people pass by your table. Everybody is looking for a freebie, and your customers are no different. You need 2 different types of freebies to create the most successful table experience. The first freebie is one you hand out to everybody who passes by your table. It should have the same messaging as the rest of your booth. The goal of this freebie is to connect your flyer with the customer's experience at your table. For our promotional flyer, we have the wannabe press mascot, along with every book the customer saw at our table. The background of the flyer is the same green color as our table drape and banner. The second freebie is one you use to sign people up for your mailing list. This is the freebie offer we talked about earlier. It isn't actually a freebie per se. It's a product you've priced below $5 and are willing to give away for free when somebody signs up for your mailing list. This second freebie doesn't have to match your coloring, but it should complement your branding. We use our wannabe mascot in all our mailing list freebies. As long as somebody stays on our mailing list, they can always get our mailing list freebies without paying a dime. It's a way to reward our fans while building brand loyalty. MailChimp uses a sim-alar tactic with their own monkey mascot. Your reason for stopping. Those are the mandatory marketing pieces you need for your booth. If you want to supercharge your marketing, though, holding special events at your table are your best friend. These can be live draws, raffles, or even an exclusive signing. These events signal to your ideal customer that your booth is a place to congregate. They create a reason for people to come to your booth, and, more importantly, a reason for them to return throughout the weekend. Your social media. The final piece of your con marketing is social media integration. If you are using Buffer, Hootsuite, or similar programs, start scheduling posts a week before the con. Post at least once every day for the week leading up to the convention. Once the con starts, increase your social media posts to 3 times a day so people know where you are and what you're doing. While you're there, take pictures of cosplayers, people who buy your products, and other cool stuff you see around the convention center. Make sure to include your booth number in every post. Check for any trending hashtags related to the show. People search those to find cool stuff. If they think your booth is a happening place, they'll be more likely to check out your table or at least follow you for future events. If you have a mailing list, send out a newsletter update with the exact location of where you will be on the convention floor. Make sure to include a map, so your fans have no problem finding your booth location. While you're at it, make that map the cover image on all your social media accounts so people can easily reference it. Pricing displays. I want to end this section by talking about whether or not you should put prices on your merchandise. It's one of the main places where I differ from almost every other creator on the con circuit. Most people tell you to price everything on the table. I wholeheartedly disagree. Here's why. The minute somebody sees pricing, they make a snap judgment on whether to stop by your booth based on that price. As an independent creator, your work will be priced higher than almost everybody else at the convention. That means you are competing with other people on price, even though you can't possibly win that battle. Since you can't compete on price, you shouldn't put prices on your product. Instead, you should compete with them on value and quality. People don't know the value of your product right away, so you need to engage them in conversation to entice them. Once they talk to you, handle your product, and understand the quality of your work, you can then tell them the price and have a better chance of making the sale. I talk later about how I use flexible pricing to increase my sales during Chapter 8, what to say to sell at your table. That's also where I talk about pitching. All of this marketing is useless if you don't have an awesome product and haven't honed your pitch. When combined with a perfect sales pitch and amazing content, though, these marketing elements can cement you in the mind of your customers as a brand worthy of attention. We'll get there. But first, we have to talk about the rest of the gear you need to survive conferences and conventions. Chapter 1. An Introduction to Selling at Events. Co-writing nonfiction books always brings up questions around how you communicate and speak to the reader. Do we do the I, Russell, and I, Monica, to indicate who's who? Do we go with I, as if we are one person writing to you? For this book, Russell is really the only one with experience selling books in person at conferences, signings, and other events. Monica has filled in some gaps where she thought that authors in her world might have questions, but most of this book is written by Russell. As such, it's largely written from Russell's perspective after this first chapter. Who is Russell? My name is Russell P. Nohelty, and I have been independently publishing since 2014 after several years of being mismanaged by small press publishers. I have launched 18 successful publishing Kickstarter, raising over $250,000 on the platform for comics, anthologies, and novels, and have traveled the country for many years selling my books during conventions. During that time, I have built a thriving mailing list, Facebook page, and authorship community. You can find more of my work at www.russellnohelty.com. I also made a lot of money at conventions from 2015 to 2018. During that time, I did 100+ events. I became a real convention warrior, but conventions can also be a grind. I decided to scale down from 40 in 2016 to just 10 in 2019. And then in 2020, the pandemic hit, and I was forced to shift most of my efforts to Kickstarter to cover a $30,000+ gap in my company's revenue. Point being, you can make real money from conventions, and I did for many years and could do it again if I needed to. This book teaches you everything I know about selling books in person. Who is Monica? My name is Monica Leonelle, and I have been independently publishing since 2009. I write young adult fantasy under Solo Storm and romance under other pen names, with about 40 books total in my catalog, 25 of which are fiction. My urban fantasy novella, The Last Daughter, hit the USA Today bestseller list in 2017 as part of a boxed set. I've also written over 15 nonfiction books about writing, editing, publishing, marketing, and business. You can learn more about my work at theworldneedsyourbook.com. Who this book is for? We're at the end of 2021 as we write this, and the world is headed back to in-person events and signings. At the same time, authors are becoming more wary of keeping everything at any given retailer and are looking for ways to expand their fan base, print sales, and inventory holdings. This book covers how authors can sell books profitably at in-person events. As such, this book is going to work best for authors who write fiction or nonfiction. Our catalogs have both, and this book can get you up to speed for both. Authors in the independent author community or in a tangential community like serialized fiction, comics, narration, or film and television. Authors who already use other direct sales methods like Kickstarter, Patreon, or selling from their websites. Authors who are serious about building an audience and who are willing to put in the effort to convert them to fans. Authors who are able and willing to invest money into table setups, inventory, merchandise, and other must-haves for their tables. We've tried to make this book useful to authors who are coming here for a better understanding of how they can expand their businesses into direct sales through live events, conferences, and signings. We definitely slant more toward the wide mindset, as we are both wide authors. If you would like to know more about this mindset, we have another book on it called Get Your Book Selling Wide. Get the basics of publishing in print, ebook, audiobook, translations, apps, and more. Book Sales Supercharged number 1. It's permanently free in ebook at most major retailers. Please check the price before downloading to make sure. What this book is about. In this book, we're going to focus on how you can sell books in person without losing a ton of money or wasting your time for little profits. Here's how we divvy up the chapters. Chapter 2: Who should be selling at live events? We share who should be selling at live events and signings, and what the biggest blockers are for people getting started. Chapter 3: The basics of selling in person. We give you a 101-level explanation of how to sell things, specifically in person, and why you should. Chapter 4: Finding places to exhibit at. We give you lots of ideas of where you can sell your books, plus what types of books will do well at each venue. Chapter 5: Getting inventory and merchandise. We give you all of Russell's best places to get merchandise printed or made. Chapter 6: Setting up your table. The unintuitive ways you can set up your conference table or booth for sales success. Chapter 7: Your Con Survival Kit. How Russell survives cons while standing on his feet all day, speaking an unusual amount, and avoiding illness and con crud while on the road. Chapter 8: What to say to sell at your table. The exact optional closing sales tactics Russell uses to close a sale, from his years of experience selling everything from software to cell phones. Chapter 9: The basics of making a profit at live events. Russell talks about how to actually make a profit at live events, as opposed to what most authors do, which is hope that someone stops by their table. We also give you some advanced sales techniques for selling more at conferences and conventions, including how to meld salesmanship and marketing together for the greatest bang for your buck. Getting things wrong sometimes. This book and Book Sales Supercharged, the series of books that it's attached to, covers an ambitious spread of topics in intense detail. We consider ourselves well-versed in the publishing industry through sheer experience. Between the two of us, we have over 60 titles across fiction, nonfiction, and comics. Successful audiobooks and translations. Titles in multiple genres and niches. Tons of experience selling both ebook and print. Tons of experience with crowdfunding. A solid understanding of Kindle Unlimited versus Wide, from experience. Strong internet marketing skills. Still, there is plenty that we don't or can't know. We have done everything humanly possible to get these books right, but there may still be gaps in our knowledge or places where we misstate something. This is where you come in. Please feel free to reach out to Monica with corrections if we've gotten something wrong within these pages or in subsequent books. We want to make these books the best resource they can be, so we won't be offended. You can email Monica at team@theworldneedsyourbook.com or through her personal email, igniterstv@gmail.com. We'll be sure to incorporate those updates into the next version of the book. Additionally, if you want to follow industry news as it's happening, make sure you join Monica's Substack newsletter, Aggressively Wide. aggressivelywide.substack.com. theworldneedsyourbook.com/substack. We also have a Facebook group that we both admin for this book series called Book Sales Supercharged, Advanced Book Marketing for Authors. Please join us as we share lots of awesome stuff related to this book series there. facebook.com/group/booksellasupercharged/. Additional resources. Sign up for Russell's free business course. A free 10-day course highlighting the most important ways authors can start acting like a business. It's the only way to get on my super secret monthly creative newsletter, filled with inspirational ideas about how to lead a creative life. http://thecompletecreative.com/FBC. Sign up for Monica's industry newsletter. The best place to keep up with this conversation is to join my industry Substack newsletter, Aggressively Wide. theworldneedsyourbook.com/substack. Check out Russell's blog. The Complete Creative helps authors lead a successful creative life, dealing with everything from mindset and creativity to sales and marketing. I've posted hundreds of blog posts, courses, and podcast archives discussing what it means to be a creative human. www.thecompletecreative.com. Subscribe to Monica's podcast. I post new 20-minute episodes about publishing going wide, serialized fiction, industry trends, and so much more on YouTube and my podcast feed. theworldneedsyourbook.com/podcast. theworldneedsyourbook.com/YouTube. Follow Monica on Medium. I post regular articles about the publishing industry if you prefer to read about new developments. theworldneedsyourbook.com/medium. Check out the rest of the series. The Book Sales Supercharged series focuses on each retailer, format, and platform, diving deep into everything you need to know to succeed in that particular space. You can find all the information about the series, plus grab the entire set of books in a bundle directly from my website at a significant discount to purchasing each individually at retailers. theworldneedsyourbook.com/wide. Chapter 3. The Basics of Selling in Person. Before we can get into the nitty-gritty of selling more books at in-person events and signings, it's important to discuss the basics of salesmanship. I used to fight with creatives tooth and nail over the value of learning sales and marketing. Eventually, I learned better. I told them that if they are happy with the level of their career and didn't want to improve their prospects, then they could get away without ever learning sales or marketing. Even if they were unhappy with their career, they didn't have to listen to a word I said as long as they didn't complain about it. Because that's the sticky wicket. You can't complain if you don't try to change. If they were unhappy with their career and ready to change, though, that was a different story. If they wanted to make more money and increase their audience, then I could supercharge their creative life. This is the same offer I make to you, dear reader. If you are not ready to take sales and marketing seriously, then this is not the book for you. If you believe selling your products is a yucky proposition, then I am not the right person to guide you. If you rail against the prospect of marketing, then please put this book down. It's not for you. Not yet. However, if you are ready to make a career out of your creative pursuits, then it's time to dive down the rabbit hole and build the foundational elements you need to make a business out of your artistic life. All of this is going to also apply to selling at in-person events, but I'll speak about these concepts more generally in this chapter because they apply to everything else in your business too. Ready? Then let's dive in. Why should people buy from you? Creatives are under the dangerous assumption that if they create great content, people will find and buy their stuff simply because it's awesome. That's just not true. The truth is that making great content does nothing but put you in the game and make it feasible for people to buy your work. It doesn't guarantee sales. It doesn't guarantee anything. After all, everybody has great content. You can't hope to be successful as a creative if you don't create great content. It would be like a company saying they created a car that didn't explode. That's not special. That doesn't win over any fans. That's what you expect from a car. In the same way, people expect great content when you are a creative. The act of making it puts you on par with Stephen King and every other amazing artist in the world. Now that you can make great content, the real question is, why would somebody buy from you instead of the thousands of other people who make equally amazing content? Why would they buy your book over another, more established writer? Why would they hang your painting on a wall instead of a more renowned artist? Why would they hire you to build their logo when they could hire a more well-known firm? People aren't going to buy from you just because you're awesome. Well, at least it's not only because you are awesome. It's because of two factors: the value proposition of what you have to offer, and the unique selling point that sets you apart. The value proposition. The value proposition is the tangible result somebody will get from buying your product. When you are selling a solution, this can be something like lose 60 pounds in 20 days, or build your retirement funds from $0 to $1 million in the next year. These are value propositions which are easy and tangible to understand. If you buy that product, you will see measurable change in your life. With a creative product, value is harder to determine. It deals much more with the emotional attachment a buyer has to your product than with its tangible benefit. The value they might see is meeting an artist in person and having them sign their work. The subject matter of your work might resonate with them, or it might be the fact they are getting a handmade, completely original piece of art. These are all ways to emotionally resonate with your client, and every client will resonate with different products for different reasons. However, there are tangible value propositions you can offer with creative products too. For instance, cutting the cost of your product by 25% makes people believe they are getting a better deal. Additionally, offering a 2-for-1 discount is another way to give tangible value to a product. Even if you plan on selling a product for $3, it is better to price it at $5 so you can discount it down to $3. People see the value in something as originally priced and are always after a deal. JCPenney used this strategy for years. They priced their product higher than their intended selling price so they could mark it down and show people they were getting a value. They changed this policy for a short while and made their pricing more transparent. Customers hated this change and sales plummeted because in the buyer's mind they weren't getting as good a deal as before. It was a disaster for JCPenney, but it shows how powerful the idea of a discount really is and how a company can misalign themselves with the value proposition of their customers. When deciding on your value proposition, it's important to understand not all buyers will resonate with your value proposition. That's okay. Your job is not to attract all buyers. It's to attract the right ones for your offer. Because of this, it's critically important to ask yourself what the value proposition is that you are offering to your potential clients. Is your value based on the lowest price, the best customer service, the highest quality, or on some other factor? If you can narrow this down, it will help define your pitch to potential clients and justify the price you charge. Additionally, it will help determine where you stand in the market and how much your product should cost to make. The unique selling point. A unique selling point is simply what makes your product one of a kind. The unique selling point sets you apart from every other creative on the planet. It's something only you have. When somebody comes to your table, they have the choice of thousands, if not millions, of creatives. Your job is to figure out how you are different and why somebody should buy from you. It's not the buyer's job to decide to buy from you. It's your job to convince the buyer you are the right fit for them. Your unique selling point might be that you print all your artwork in a certain way, or that you use certain materials. It might have to do with your worldview, the types of products you make, or the subject matter of your artwork. The unique selling point is something nobody else has except for you. My friend Lean Isabel makes a comic book about pole dancing. While the book is great, the unique selling point is that it's the only comic book I've ever seen about pole dancing that is made for female pole dancers instead of over-sexualized boys. That unique hook resonates with her intended audience. Pole dancing adventure isn't for everybody, but its unique selling point makes the right person immediately attracted to her book. If you can determine the value proposition and unique selling point in your work, you will be on the path toward figuring out everything else related to your business. It will give you a direction for your branding, your ideal customer, and everything else that we talk about for the rest of this book. So, what is your value proposition? Where do you stand in the market? Are you more concerned with quality or quantity of sales? What do you want to convey to your customers about the value of your product? What separates you from the rest of your competition? Why are you unique? If you can answer those questions, you will be well on your way to having a solid con table and selling more books at events and signings. If you can't, then this is the time to start thinking about it. Jot down some notes and ask a trusted friend or critic. The sales funnel. When creatives delve into sales for the first time, they often complain their daily work doesn't pay off quickly enough. They call people, email prospects, and have meetings with potential customers, but when they don't get any new clients in the first few weeks of starting their business, it makes them want to abandon it altogether. Of course, that's a mistake. There is a simple reason why their hard work isn't paying off immediately. Selling is all about delayed gratification. In sales, we build for the future, not the present. Very few customers will ever close on a deal the day you meet them. Customers need time to get to know you, like you, and build trust with you before they buy your product or service. What you do today is predictive of your success in 6 to 8 weeks. That's right. Your hard work today won't pay off for nearly 2 months. This is what hampers many artists from growing their business. They give up before they could ever realistically succeed. We live in a world of instant gratification, and success in business is a long-term payoff. Over time, your hard work compounds through the success of your sales funnel. A sales funnel is no different than a funnel you would use in your kitchen or to put oil into your car, wide at the top with a narrow bottom. Into the top of the funnel goes potential customers, and out the bottom comes clients. It's as simple as that. There are 4 stages in my sales funnel. Stage 1: exist in people's minds. The first stage is that people need to know you exist. This means you need a strong internet presence, a killer in-person networking strategy, and a dynamite brand. At this stage of the funnel, you aren't trying to find the right clients. You are simply looking for as many potential customers as possible. The rest of the funnel will weed out people who are bad matches for your product and leave you only with perfect fits. You need to cast the widest net possible at this stage, because the wider the top of the funnel becomes, the wider it will be at the bottom. Let's assume you need to talk with 100 people in order to find one client. If you only talk to 20 people a month, you will not find a new client for 5 months. In this case, by simply talking to 5 times more people, you can find a client every month. If you increase that to 200 or 300 people a month, you can find 2 to 3 clients a month. This alone can exponentially increase your revenue. Stage 2: be likable. The second stage of the funnel is getting people to like you. This is when we start narrowing the funnel down. We need to push out content that is attractive to our ideal client, whether that means sharing comic book pages, short stories, or articles about pandas. Whatever you share, it should be hyper-targeted to your ideal client. If it is, then people who are interested in the things you are sharing will grow to like you. Meanwhile, people who aren't interested will drop out of your funnel before you invest too much energy in them. This is the stage where people fall out of your funnel the most. You shouldn't be nervous when people unfollow you or unsubscribe from your mailing list at this point. My mailing list has a 31% unsubscribe rate in the first couple of weeks of somebody joining. I love that number because it means I'm weeding out the people who don't care about what I do. This process of showing people what you do, building empathy with your ideal client, and weeding out ones who don't care about your message is one of the most powerful tools in business. Unfortunately, because of our natural need to be liked, we shy away from offending anybody. As a result, we try to please everybody and thus attract nobody. Weeding out people who don't fit your product is a natural part of business. You shouldn't care about those people anyway, because they won't buy from you. Heck, they don't even like you. Your job isn't to please people who have no interest in what you are doing with your business. Your job is to connect with as many people as possible and let the right ones self-select to be part of your network over the long haul. Stage 3: get people to trust you. The third stage of the funnel is making people trust you. This is the trickiest part of the funnel. Everybody left at this stage of the funnel is in your ideal client pool. Now you have to convince them to buy your product. This is where your unique selling point and value proposition become essential. Even within your ideal client pool, there will be people looking for different features in their product. Take a car, for instance. Even among car buyers, some people want the most reliable vehicle for their family, others want a sports car with the fastest engine. Still others want the most luxurious ride on the road. That's why car companies have multiple brands and models. There are many features people might want, and it's critical to target the right message to the right customer. If we didn't have different needs, then everybody would be driving around in the same beige Honda Accord, right? But we aren't driving around in the same cars. There are more than 100 different types of cars on the road, all with different features, sold by different companies, under different brands. They all capture a different part of the market. They all speak to a different type of person. The same is true with your product. If you create high-end geek chic necklaces that cost $100 or more, then you are isolating yourself from people who are looking for cheap charms, and isolating yourself even more from people looking for an art print or a comic book. And that's natural. That's good. Heck, that's necessary to create a sustainable business. This is what finding the right client for your product is all about. Stage 4, making the sale. The final stage of the funnel is people buying from you. This is when the right customer is ready to make a buying decision, and you have proven you are the right person to help them. Hooray! You've got a customer. Notice, there are 3 stages in this funnel before buying your product even comes into the equation. There will be people in your funnel who know you but won't like you but won't trust you, and trust you but won't buy from you. We can see this play out in our own lives. We all have a coworker we hate but can't get rid of, or a family member we love but wouldn't trust with $1 of our money. We all have those people in our lives, but we also have a friend we would gladly give money to because we know they'll use our money to do something awesome. The same is true with your business. Most people won't buy from you. When I go to a convention, I'm lucky if 1% of people sign up for my mailing list, and 10% of those people ever buy from me. Even at a convention like San Diego Comic-Con, where I make thousands of dollars, I only sell a few hundred books, and there are over 160,000 people in attendance. But that's okay. In fact, that's how a funnel is supposed to work. This year we were set up in the small press area of San Diego Comic-Con, which meant people who came down our aisle self-identified as people who liked independent comic books. That already narrowed the field of potential customers down quite a bit. From there, all I had to do was engage with as many people as possible, so that some of them would like me, and some of those people would trust me, and then some of those people would buy from me. In the end, by knowing how many people would attend the event, I could accurately predict how much I would make, and next year I can make an even more accurate prediction because I have even more data. This is the power of the funnel. If you understand how it works, you can predict the revenue for your entire business months into the future. There is one more point I want to make before ending this section. When you start selling your work, a small number of people will buy from you immediately. This is because you have spent decades building up trust with certain people in your life. Those people have already worked their way to the bottom of your funnel, and are ready to make a buying decision the moment you launch your storefront. Once those people work their way through the bottom of your funnel, though, there won't be anybody left to buy your product if you haven't built out the top of your funnel properly. I've seen far too many creatives tell me that lots of people bought their book in the first month of release, but they haven't seen another sale for over a year. This happens because they relied on their existing network to buy their product initially, and once those people flushed out of their funnel, there was nobody to replace them. Remember, a funnel is only as good as the number of people you put into the top of it. Model success to feel successful. Most creative professionals don't like sales and marketing because it feels too much like begging. People hate to beg. I hate to beg too. I don't think anybody likes to beg. However, sales isn't about begging. Do you ever think Starbucks begs for your money? Does it ever feel like begging when they post a billboard or run a TV spot? Of course not. That would be crazy. Their marketing isn't begging, is it? You bet it is. Every time they run an ad, they are saying, "Please come buy our coffee because if you don't, we'll go bankrupt." Every time you see one of their billboards, they are pleading with you to spend just $1 with them, so they don't have to shut down their storefronts. They aren't running those ads for the heck of it. They are running ads because they know begging for your money is essential to making their business successful. Starbucks spends millions of dollars a year begging for your money. It never comes across as begging though, does it? I've never once looked at a Starbucks ad and thought, wow, they must be desperate for my money. And that's because Starbucks doesn't see it as begging. They see it as effective marketing. Effective marketing brings more money through the doors. They don't position their marketing as begging, so it doesn't come across as begging. They position their marketing as showing off their awesome stuff in the best light possible. This is an important mindset shift you must employ to be successful as a creative professional. You must use marketing effectively, like Starbucks. But once we get over that mental block, how can we compete with a company like Starbucks, whose marketing budget is astronomical? That's the easy part. Starbucks is everywhere, their marketing is ubiquitous. While they won't ever tell you specific sales figures on a product, you can gauge effective marketing by how long a campaign runs and whether a product stays on their menu. Something like their pumpkin spice latte has very effective marketing. The same is true in creative fields. Whether it's graphic design or publishing, there are billion-dollar players in your space spending millions of dollars on marketing every year. By studying them, you can model their success in your own business. If you are a freelancer, there are individual creators who market themselves to acquire new business as well. You can model their success just as easily as you can model the success of a company. All you have to do is follow their career and study their habits. If you are trying to sell more prints at shows, look through the art books of successful show artists and mimic their price points. If you are a writer, study successful authors in your genre and find out what makes them special. If you want your work hung in a gallery, you can meet with fine artists to discover their process for getting a dealer. All of this research is easily accomplished with a few days of studying. This isn't stealing, mind you. You aren't going to copy anything directly. You are simply getting a feel for how a successful person or company runs their business and then modeling their success in your own life. This includes being on the same social media platforms, targeting the same users, and using similar color patterns in your logo to maximize your chances for success. Your goal is to take their successes and their failures and use them to quickly catapult your business beyond what you could do alone. If the average path to success takes 10 years, you might be able to do it in 8 or even 6, if you model success effectively. If you aren't modeling success, then you are setting yourself up for failure. You will have to spend millions of dollars that you don't have on your own research. Then, you'll have to put brand new products on the market and play catch-up with those same companies that are already positioned better than you in the marketplace. It's a recipe for disaster. By modeling successful players in your industry, you can move yourself ahead drastically with none of the upfront cost and very little time investment. Additionally, if you model success, you will begin to feel successful. The more success builds in your own company, the more confident you will be in your own life, leading to more success. Every successful person you know is a loser. We tend to look at somebody who is uber successful and only see the best days of their life. We see the time they won the Pulitzer Prize or an Oscar. We see the days they were booked on a television show or sold an important piece of art. We see the day they got a publishing deal or the day their book came out. We see every good moment in their lives, but those aren't the norm. The normal day of a successful person is filled with rejection and failure. I'm here to tell you that every successful person you know is really a loser. How is that possible? By definition, they can't be a loser if they are successful, right? I mean, isn't the whole point of success that you are no longer a loser? No. If anything, the more successful you are, the bigger a loser you become. Let's take Stephen King as an example. On average, Stephen King sells 1 to 2 million copies every time he releases a new book. He's arguably the most important and successful author of all time, with credits ranging from TV to novels to comic books, in multiple genres spanning multiple decades. By any measure, he's a massive success. So, how can he be a loser? Let's look at those sales numbers in a different way for a moment, shall we? For the purpose of this discussion, let's assume he sells on the high side of his average, and use the 2 million book number for his sales. Now, let's talk about the world population. There are 7.4 billion people on this planet. Of those, 46.2% are at least 15 years old. Even though I'm sure many younger people read his books, for the purpose of this discussion, I'm going to use 15 as a barometer of his potential audience. We also have to account for global illiteracy. Studies show 785 million people in the world suffer from illiteracy. If we take those people out of the potential audience pool, we are left with a possible 2.63 billion people in this world who could theoretically read Stephen King books, yet he only sells 2 million copies. Therein lies the crux of why Stephen King is a loser. He sells a lot of books, but there are billions of people in his potential audience. Think about those numbers for a moment. Out of a possible 2,630,000,000 people, only 2 million buy his books. While both of those numbers are huge, 2 million is only 10% of 1% of his potential readership. If somebody told you that they had a 0.1% success rate selling their books, you wouldn't think them very successful, would you? Of course not. A 0.1% success rate is terrible. Except that it's not for Stephen King. With the right scale, 0.1% could make you the most successful author on the planet. Most creatives think successful people get every opportunity that comes their way, that everybody in the world loves their work, and that they can do no wrong. That's just not true. Most of a creative life, even at the highest levels, is abject failure and rejection. As this example shows, only 1 in every 1,000 people read Stephen King books, and he's still massively successful. He has a global audience now, but he didn't always. When he began, he had an audience of 1, and it grew from there. That's where it starts, with just one person. Every time you make a new work, you have the ability to grow that audience, and every time you meet somebody new, you have the chance to extend your audience a bit. Cherish those few people who love your work, because they don't come along often. Most people aren't going to be part of your audience. You can't be discouraged by that. You can't be discouraged by rejection. You have to search for the 1 in 1,000 people who will love your work and focus on them. Because in today's technological age, you can find those people easier than ever. It's not only possible, it's certain. If you give it enough time and energy, you will find your audience. If you need to talk with 1,000 people to find one potential customer for your work, then we should be able to agree that the quickest way to success is through scaling your message. You need to build a massive platform to be successful, because the larger your online and in-person presence, the more sales you will make, right? It becomes a numbers game. How do you talk to 1,000 people in the quickest way to build your audience the fastest? If that becomes your mentality, then the rejection falls away. All you then care about is finding your rabid fans, and every time somebody says no, it just puts you closer to a yes. It quickly becomes as important to put 999 people in the no pile as it is to find the 1 person to put in the yes pile. If you can move your mentality toward this model, you will not be put off when you get a no or even 100 no's, because all you need is that 1 yes in 1,000 to be successful. It's about ignoring those rejections and focusing on the yeses. My golden rule of business is this: anybody can find an audience. The only trick is whether you can find that audience before money runs out. There is an audience for everything, but if you worry about the rejection, you'll never find yours. I very much doubt Stephen King cares about being a loser. He focuses on the wins, on the 0.1% of people who love his work, and he doesn't worry himself with the rest. If you can do that, you might one day be as big a loser as Stephen King. The value of showing up. 80% of success is just showing up. I am the perfect depiction of this fact. When I lived in Washington, D.C., I stayed in my cocoon, convinced that the world would come to me if I just made something cool. After I moved to Los Angeles, I realized that I needed to meet people, mostly because nobody cared about what I was doing. So I started going out to events and meeting new people. At first, I knew nobody. I sat in a corner alone and had no friends. I didn't have anything but a few finished scripts after all. Who would want to talk with me? After a few events, I started meeting people who were further along on the path that I wanted to tread. I was nervous to talk with them, but after a couple of interactions, I became more and more comfortable. I made a terrible first impression, but my third impressions were dynamite. Because I kept showing up, I was able to make those third impressions on people who have since become great friends of mine. I learned so much during our interactions that it helped me decide to start making comics and writing books. Once I made that decision, I went to conventions as an attendee and talked to people exhibiting behind the table. After all, they were exactly where I wanted to be. Meanwhile, I kept showing up at networking events and hanging out with creative people. I would show my new friends everything I was doing, get notes, and build goodwill with awesome people who were doing exactly what I wanted to do. Over time, creators opened up to me just like you would with an old friend. By being nothing more than present and amiable, I moved past the acquaintance stage and formed real friendships with influential people who were only heroes and myths to me when we first met. They started asking me questions instead of the other way around. Eventually, it became natural to know all the big players in comics and publishing. It became natural for me to talk about making stuff with these people because they were my friends. Not just acquaintances, but legitimate friends of mine. When I finished project after project, it showed I was legit as a creator on top of being an awesome friend. The more projects I finished, the bigger my reputation grew within the creative community of people doing exactly what I wanted to do. Eventually, I started exhibiting my work at shows. Once I moved behind the table as an exhibitor, my career exploded. I already knew most of the players, and now I was an authority. As I grew my company, people started pitching ideas to me instead of the other way around. I saw the wide eyes in their faces like mine had been so many years ago. That all started, though, because I kept showing up to the right places until the right people accepted me as one of their own. It didn't happen overnight, but I kept showing up until it did. Too many people don't show up, or stop showing up in a year because it's just too hard. There is a sort of extinction point for creatives. The extinction point is the moment when a creative vanishes off the face of the earth and you never see them again. Not literally, of course. They're still alive, but they stop showing up to networking events, abandon online forums, and no longer attend conventions. They are out of the sight and mind, out of the creative community, thus becoming all but extinct. If you can make it past the extinction point, you are suddenly taken much more seriously by the community as a whole. I think it's because there are so many people who say they want to do a thing, like write a book or illustrate a comic, but then don't. If we took the time to invest in every one of these people, we'd be heartbroken all the time. The path to success is littered with people who wanted to do things and then stopped showing up. As you prove yourself by being around people and accomplishing cool things, people start to respect you and like you more, feeding your funnel more and more over time. Think about your own life. Aren't there people who have become your friends simply because they kept coming around? I know it's happened to me. It's the same way in your creative life. You don't have to do this in person either. You can show up in the right online forums and Facebook groups instead. Some of my best creative friends live a world away. Whether it's in person or in real life, the best thing you can do for your career is show up. That's essential. It takes no skill. It takes no talent. It just takes having the ability to be nice to people. If you do nothing else but show up over a long enough time horizon with the right people, you can be successful. Of course, if you keep showing up and can make awesome stuff as well, then success is almost a guarantee. All of these concepts are important to selling at in-person events and signings, which we'll get into the nitty-gritty of starting in the next chapter. Chapter 4. Finding places to exhibit at. A lot of authors think that you have to pay for a table at a major con to start selling your books in person. This chapter dispels that myth and gives you lots of ideas about how you can get started selling more books at events and signings without having to make risky investments or jump into a situation you're not prepared or practiced for. Here is a list of places that you can sell your books at. A general convention. You can exhibit at a convention like DragonCon, which caters to multiple genres. You'll definitely find your people here, but these tables tend to be pricier and potentially out of the average creator's budget. A genre-specific convention. You can sign at events like Ball Gowns and Books Event Babe, which caters to romance readers. These are ideal for writers with a following, as there are lots of other authors in your genre at these events already. A local arts, crafts, or makers fair. There are likely dozens of these within driving distance, especially around the holidays. If you have holiday books, this might be a good way to get started in your community. A street fair or festival. These are typically thematic and niche, and often hosted by community organizations like churches or nonprofits. Look for fairs and festivals that cater to specific cultures and ethnicities, especially your own or those of your characters, as well as ones that cater to different relevant celebrations like Earth Day or Pride. A local special interest event. People gather for interesting hobbies like Renaissance festivals, military reenactments, and marathon races. Do these events allow for vendors? A library, school, or bookstore. These are the obvious spaces that authors usually check out first, which is great. Also keep in mind that teachers, librarians, and bookstore owners can connect you to other events that might be a good fit for your books, as they are USU Ally plugged into their local events and programming. Church and school events. Churches and schools are huge community gathering spaces and often have events, especially around the holidays, that are looking for local vendors. These also often happen on evenings and weekends, so if you have something relevant for these audiences, it can be a great place to show up. A farmer's market. You can often get seasonal space at large farmers' markets for less than $1,000. Neighbors frequent these spaces, and if you publish frequently, you can change out your table regularly. This may be a way to connect with people who will support you at other events in your area too. A local community-focused store. You can get consignment deals in relevant stores like a flower shop, cake shop, or a restaurant. These places may also be willing to host signings for you, if you are able to bring some traffic to them. A local community space. The same thing applies to local community spaces like art galleries and yoga studios. These are often large, fairly empty rooms that are perfect for organizing events and are rarely utilized around the clock. A booth at the mall or elsewhere. You can rent or open a small space or studio anywhere that has organic foot traffic, including malls and other downtown shopping districts. You can often get small spaces that are normally closed at key times anyway, a shop that's closed on Mondays, or spaces in places that already host classes, signings, or events. A related creative event. You can find events across other creative fields, including film, music, and more. Do people who enjoy Hallmark conventions like romance books? Probably. Big cons versus small cons. I have friends who spend over $5,000 attending one convention a year. Of course, that convention is San Diego Comic-Con, and they get a huge booth, but they blow their entire marketing wad on one show. That means for the rest of the year, they have no budget to do anything else except social media outreach, which has a much lower conversion rate. Meanwhile, I have roughly the same show budget, but I am able to attend almost 50 shows a year. This is because I'm always looking for ways to lower my table cost so I can exhibit at more shows. For instance, I spend $500 on a small press table at Comic-Con instead of $5,000 on a booth, and then I split that table in half with the creators I publish through Wannabe Press. That means I'm spending $250 on a table at the same convention where other exhibitors are spending $5,000. That gives me $4,750 more a year to attend additional shows, from big shows like WonderCon all the way down to local library shows down the street. While huge conventions are the anchor points of a successful show strategy, small conventions are the backbone of exponential brand growth. The truth is that you need to consistently table at shows if you want to stay current in the minds of your audience. There just aren't enough big shows to sustain a consistent brand presence. Even in Los Angeles, there are only 3 or 4 anchor shows a year. The rest of my con strategy involves filling in those gaps with local shows. Smaller conventions don't bring the cash windfall of a show like San Diego Comic-Con, but they also don't cost nearly as much to attend. Instead of paying $5,000 for an exhibitor booth at an enormous show, most small shows cost less than $50 to attend. Many cons will even offer you a free table. This means that with the same $5,000 budget, I can attend upwards of 50 shows or more a year instead of just a single one. It's true a huge exhibitor booth will get more exposure than a small press table at any given show, but they don't get 50 times the exposure. Even if they do, that exposure is limited to a single week, whereas my exposure is spread out over an entire year. Of course, this doesn't mean you should only attend small cons either. Your con schedule should be made up of a combination of small and large conventions, as they each serve different purposes. Large shows give your brand legitimacy in the eyes of your ideal customers. By going to shows that people recognize, like Emerald City Comic-Con, Phoenix, New York Comic-Con, WonderCon, and San Diego Comic-Con, you immediately build your authority and social proof with your ideal customer, even if you never meet them in person. The brand recognition alone is worth the price of admission. However, don't feel the need to buy an enormous booth at a big convention to legitimize yourself. Brand recognition works equally well whether you buy a huge booth or the smallest table possible. In the eyes of your online audience, there is no difference. Exhibiting at a huge convention can supercharge your mailing list growth too. While I get around 20 new mailing list subscribers at a small convention, I add over 200 at a larger one. Additionally, larger cons give you the best chance to network with large publishers, well-known creators, agents, managers, producers, and press outlets. While some of these movers and shakers attend smaller conventions, bigger cons bring them out of the woodwork. The downside to big cons is that they are a meat market. You can't talk to any one person for more than a couple of minutes. At big cons, you make your money by the sheer volume of people walking past your table. Smaller cons, on the other hand, allow you to have more meaningful conversations with attendees. A small con allows you to talk with a single person for a long time. You can talk with attendees in depth about your product and build a real connection with them. At these smaller cons, you make your money by the quality of your engagement. I use small cons to build incredible value and empathy with attendees. I often meet customers at a larger convention, but they don't buy until they find me at a smaller one. This is the key value of varying up your convention strategy with both large and small cons. Because you can exhibit at more conventions, you build up more brand awareness and likability than if you only exhibit at large cons. The main reason Wannabe Press is so successful at conventions is because people see us over and over again. I can't tell you how many people we talk to at conventions who mention originally meeting us at a different con from months earlier. Eventually, people who meet us over and over again become customers simply because we've treated them with respect. We've moved to the top of their buy list by being consistently present in their mind. A customer needs to be touched 7 to 15 times by a company in order to become a client. A touch point could be your newsletter, a post on social media, or an advertisement. However, the most powerful touch point is always in-person communication. There is no substitute for looking somebody in the eyes and shaking their hand to build an instant connection with them. Unless you travel, which is extremely expensive, there aren't enough big shows in any given area to consistently reach out to your potential audience in person. Therefore, to maintain those in-person relationships, you must attend smaller shows as well. To find smaller shows, ask at your local comic book shops and build a network of local creators. They are the best sources to find local shows. If you create a good group of people in the know, you will be surprised how many small shows pop up in your area. If you work together, you can dominate the local con market. If you try to go it alone, you will most likely struggle. Get creative. There are a ton of opportunities to sell your books in person, at live events and signings. Start small and work your way up as your comfort level grows. Chapter 5. Getting inventory and merchandise. What do you actually sell when you got to a convention? What do you bring specifically? How do you bundle different items together? And how do you do it without wasting money on things that won't sell? These are the questions I answer in this chapter, along with sharing all my best sources for getting inventory and merchandise printed and made. Products I bring to cons. I am at shows to make money, so I bring products to shows that I know I can make money with. Here is the list. Books. A reader is worth more to me in the long term than just about anything else, so I go to cons primarily to sell books. Books are what bring people to the rest of the series and back to the table in the future, so this is the core part of what you should sell as an author. If you can make a collectible book just for cons, like a book number 1 with 3 extra short stories or world building, now you have a reason for them to buy on the spot rather than look online later, and you can also charge more than you might for that same book online. Pins or buttons. People collect hard enamel pins at cons on their lanyards or backpack, and you can get them for $1 minus 2 each if you buy them 200 at a time. Pins also sell for $10 minus 15, so they are a high-margin item. Finally, I can use pins as add-ons to close the sale if needed, or as an incentive to sign up for an email list, and it doesn't cost me much. Bookmarks. I use bookmarks to start a conversation with people, since people who take bookmarks are usually book readers. I'll ask, "Would you like a cool bookmark?" And if they reach out to grab it, I'll pull it back slightly to draw them toward the table while asking a follow-up question like, "Hey, do you know anything about our books?" As they respond, I release the bookmark to them. They are now facing my table, which makes further conversation easier to engage them on, which helps lead them to the sale. Collectible drop cards. These are cards that you can print that give readers an ebook or set of digital products. I sell these for $10 or as an add-on to close a sale. They cost about $1 to make, so they serve the same purpose as enamel pins. Products I don't bring to cons. Here's a list of things I don't bring and why. T-shirts. These are heavy, bulky, and keeping the right balance of sizes in stock is a nightmare. Prints. These are hard to display and overwhelm readers, and they are not easy to buy or transport home. Any book or product less than $20 people at cons think in $20 bills, so I want to make sales in those increments too. If you are going to have a book less than $20, you need to do 2 for $20 or a book plus merch for $20. Get your core offering or bundle to be $20 or $40. I also like to have a lot of margin, so that if I need to close a sale, I can say 3 for $35, plus I'll throw in a pin, or a collectible drop card or a bookmark or whatever. If your margin is tight, you have no room for negotiation and side deals, which are critical to keeping your sales high. Later books in the series. I usually only bring the first book in any series, and if people want the later ones, they will find them online or pre-order them before the next year's show. You do better when you have options to offer the buyer, based on their interests. Where to order merchandise and inventory from. This is my list of where I get things printed and made. Cheap great book printing, https://mixam.com/. Pricier fast, great book printing, https://www.48herbooks.com/. Enamel pins and lanyards, https://www.gs-jj.com/. T-shirts for Kickstarters or yourself and team. https://www.terminustees.com/. Making a profit. Using this spread of inventory and merchandise, I'm able to close about 100 to 150 sales at a really good larger convention. 200 is the max, and that's a great convention and unusual. My average sale is $30 because I use bundling, which means I can make $3,000 to $6,000 gross per event. Chapter 8. What to say to sell at your table. If you want to get somebody interested in buying your product, whether it's a book, a print, or even your services, you need to start with a dynamite pitch. In my experience, you don't have much time to catch somebody's interest. Luckily, I've perfected the steps to a good pitch so you can gain somebody's attention in a minimal amount of time. Once they're hooked, you can spend as much time as you want with them. The trick is getting them interested in the first place. I've tailored this formula through dozens of shows, but it can be used on social media, in meetings, or basically anywhere you need to get somebody's attention. A pitch needs to be simple and concise with specific appeals for your intended audience. There are tons of steps that go into a great pitch. Don't worry if you get frustrated with it. Pitching, like any art form, gets better with practice. Step 1: The question. The first step in any good pitch is the question. This is where you get your potential customer to engage with you by answering a simple yes or no question. My first question to passersby at a con is usually, "Do you want to see a cool comic?" However, as the variety of titles at wannabe presses grows, my pitches vary depending on what I am trying to push on any given day. If I want to sell more of my murder mystery novel, the question is, "Do you like murder?" If I am trying to sell kids' books, the question is, "Want to see something that will put your kid to sleep?" The people who stopped and replied yes were immediately self-identifying that they were interested in what I was pitching. I knew they were in my target market because they said yes. One of the most important concepts in sales is the idea that many small yeses lead to one big yes, the big yes being a sale. If you can get people to say yes over and over again, they are confirming their interest in your product, and you have positioned yourself well to win their business. If you are selling yourself and not your product, your question might be, "Are you sick of freelancers that bail?" Or are you having trouble making people notice your brand? If you are selling prints, you might ask, "Are you looking for a new accent piece for your bedroom?" Or, "Are your walls annoyingly bare?" You won't know exactly what works until you get out into the world and test several possibilities, but the idea is to get somebody to say yes to you right off the bat with a simple, innocuous question. Step 2: The option. Once your potential customer is engaged with your pitch, you need to give them a simple two-choice option to move the conversation along to the next step. This option is another way to make your potential customer self-identify their preferences. When there are 2 comic books on my table, I ask, "Do you like psychological mind screws or girls that kick butt?" By giving them the choice, I force them to buy into their preference. Psychologically, this puts people in a more receptive mood to buy. By choosing their favorite, they agree they are interested in what I am selling. Now all I have to do is make my case and hope they bite. The beauty of this option is that I know every possible outcome and can plan my pitch accordingly. You know what your pitch will be if they say option 1, and you know your pitch if they say option 2. Even if they don't pick either option, you know your next step because you've limited their potential responses. For instance, if they say both, or if they pause for more than a second, I always pitch my bestseller. Some people prefer to ask their customers open-ended questions, but that is a dangerous game. If you ask a question like, "What are you shopping for today?" or "What do you like?" you are giving the power to the buyer. They could say anything. For all you know, they might say, "I'm here because goats are cool." By using the two-choice option, you get all the advantages of engagement, with none of the risk posed by open-ended questions. By narrowing down your potential customers' options, you can nail your pitch every time. With pitching, even a few seconds delay can be the difference between a sale and the customer walking away in disgust. Step 3. The pitch. Did you notice there are 2 steps before we even get to the pitch? This is called priming the customer, and it allows for you to get a couple of yeses before you even pitch the product. It also forces the customer to self-identify as a member of your ideal audience, twice. This leads to a more engaged listener and higher overall sales. Your pitch is a simple 1-sentence summary of your project's biggest hook. This isn't a summary of what your product does, but an emotional appeal to your customer. People make purchases based on emotion, so you need to make an emotional connection to the buyer. The good news is they've already self-identified that they want to hear your pitch. Now all you have to do is nail the emotional hook. Emotional connection is a powerful thing, and it's the most powerful buying trigger you have to help boost your sales. When somebody doesn't know you, they must be able to connect with your product emotionally in order for you to make a sale. Don't worry if you don't have this down perfectly at first. Discovering the emotional resonance of your product is difficult. You should write out 10 to 20 potential pitches, and then start delivering them to people to find the one with the best emotional connection. Most likely, you will need to combine the best parts of several pitches for the best effect. Before a product ever even launches, I spend hundreds of hours developing the exact wording of its pitch. I show people our in-progress work, tell them as much as I can about it, and watch how they react, noting which parts of my description light them up. I mold that all into the perfect pitch. At the time of this writing, I usually do this through Kickstarter. You can read our book, Get Your Book Selling on Kickstarter, to see how this questioning works to qualify potential buyers there too. By the time the product launches, I know the exact emotional beats necessary to maximize sales. Step 4. The flavor. Once you finish your pitch, let it settle in for a moment with your potential customer. Let them look at the product and turn it over a couple times. Once they've looked at it for a few seconds, you should start adding on some flavor elements to spice up your pitch. This is when you start peppering in some unique selling points and your value proposition for whatever you are selling. These flavor elements are things they can't find easily by looking at your product, like where it was made, why you made it, or who worked on it with you. Every product is different, and you need to find the right spice to resonate with a product's ideal audience. For my graphic novel, Ichabod Jones, Monster Hunter, people respond when I tell them about our influences for making the book, that we used a single artist for everything, and that it's a complete story. With Katrina Hates the Dead, I know they respond when I talk about the artist going on to work on a Star Wars story, and that we have additional process images in the back showing how we made the book. Each of these bits of flavor perk up the reader and strengthen their desire to buy the product. Step 5. The acceptance. Before you ask for the sale, you want to get them to agree once again that the product is cool. This can be as simple as pretty cool, right? You are priming them one more time before asking them to buy. They've agreed this is a product they want 3 times, and now it's time to ask for the sale. Step 6. The ask. Ask for the business by stating the price of your services and giving them another optional close. For instance, you could say, "This book is $20 or 2 for $30, or will that be cash or charge?" This final optional close once again primes the customer that they are going to buy. Instead of the option being yes or no, it's, "How do I want to pay?" Don't be too pushy here. You'll see their reaction when you state the price. Most people will back off, some will buy, and some will be on the fence. For the people who back off, exchange cards and add them to your mailing list. For the people who buy, have them pay and add them to your mailing list. For the people on the fence, move on to Step 7. Step 7. Objection handling. Most people aren't going to buy your project. Some will flat out say no, but others will sit on the fence waiting for you to convince them to buy. They want your product, but you haven't given them a strong enough reason to give you their hard-earned money. So you have to give them a good reason to buy. With these people, you want to give them another question, like, what's stopping you from buying this right now? However, a better question would be, I know you want this, but you're trying to save your money to see if there is something better, right? They will almost always agree with this, and then you can make them a special offer, something like, what if I gave you a money-back guarantee? If you find something better at this con, come back and I will give you your money back. I've been making this offer for years, and nobody has ever come back to get their money back. Maybe they will have a great reason, like, I'm not getting paid for 2 weeks. Maybe they have a crappy reason you can easily overcome and make them a customer. Perhaps the pricing is too high, and in that case you can lower the price slightly, or maybe they really want multiple pieces, in which case you can offer them bundle pricing. If you can overcome these objections in one round of objection handling, then you should have a customer on your hand. If they still have objections, try to flush them out with one more round before giving up. Step 8. Downsell. You want to do at most 2 rounds of this objection handling. If you can't make a sale by then, exchange cards, add them to your mailing list, and make them a future prospect. You can keep going for as long as you want with objections, but I've found if you can't convince them with 2 chances, then they most likely won't buy, at least not until later. Practice this pitch. In practice, this entire pitch, from meeting a customer through objection handling, takes no more than a couple of minutes max. It's the whittling down everything you want to say into a couple sentences that takes forever. The actual pitch should be no more than 2 minutes. The first time you do it, it won't take 2 minutes. It will take forever, and you'll get everything wrong. You'll sound terrible. You'll say things in the wrong order. You'll say things you didn't mean to say. You'll ramble on forever. You'll be just awful. That's okay. It's unnatural to talk about your project. Nobody likes to do it. Since you don't want to do it either, you'll stop after 2 or 3 attempts. Then you'll hang your head in shame and never want to do it again. Don't give up. That's the key to this. You can't stop. You have to keep going. Over time you will get better. The more you practice your pitching muscle, the better you'll get, and the more natural you will become. The key to a pitch is that it can't sound like a pitch. It has to sound natural, and it can't sound natural until you've done it 1,000 times. You can't do it 1,000 times if you stop after the first attempt. You're supposed to suck at this at first. Sucking at something, as Jake the dog from Adventure Time says, is the first step to being kind of good at something. If you want to be kind of good at pitching, you have to do the work. There are no shortcuts in coming up with and practicing a compelling pitch. The only secret is to do it a whole bunch of times. Bring your passion. The single best way to convince somebody to buy your work is through passion. I often joke that 10% of my sales come from passion alone. As I've stated before, we are emotional creatures and we make purchases based on emotion. An artist who is able to convey passion for their work through their actions, their voice, and their words will have a much easier time getting sales because they can hit an emotional chord with their audience. When I first started selling products, I talked in a very low voice. I didn't have any emotion behind my words. I gave the facts about what the product I was selling did, but never conveyed why customers should buy it. I had absolutely no passion, and it showed. Consequently, my sales numbers sucked, and yours will too if you can't bring your passion to the forefront. If you can't get excited and passionate about your product, how can anybody else get passionate about it enough to buy it? You are your best advocate. You need to love your project 110% to succeed. But more than love it, you need to convey to other people why you love it. After I learned that, I went from a below-average salesperson to a superstar. I know you have passion for what you do. If you didn't, then you would be doing something else, something easier. Nobody creates things because of the money. It's passion that drives artists. Passion is often buried deep down in the recesses of our soul. It's our job to pull it out and convey it to the world. So, how do we seize our passion? Here are a couple of strategies that work. Don't feel the need to try all of them at once. This is a slow, gradual process that takes months or years to work through. Write about why you want to create. The most important part of bringing your passion to the forefront is figuring out the real reasons you create. These are the internal motivations that make you passionate for what you do. Why do you sit up at night or early in the morning making your projects? Why do you forego time with loved ones and sleep to sit in solitude in front of a computer? What makes you want to create art instead of working on something with more stability? Focus your general passion onto specific projects. Once you have the overall reasons behind your creative drive, look through your projects and determine why you were passionate to make each specific piece. You can't say, "I don't know. I just did." That's not a good enough reason to spend 16 hours on a print. Or if that is the reason, you shouldn't be focusing your sales on that piece. People buy based on the passion displayed on the page as much as the passion you convey through your sales actions. There has to be a driving force behind why a piece needed to get out into the world in order to make it a success. Practice talking about the passion behind your projects. After discovering why you are passionate about a project, it's time to practice on real people. Assemble a group of creators and take turns talking through why each of you are passionate about specific projects. Hearing their passions will help you better define yours. This can't be a one-time thing. You need a standing date to talk about your projects to make your deep-seated passion bubble to the surface. The more you talk about your project, the more your passion will intensify and focus, until it's honed into a finely tuned laser that can cut through the noise of life and connect powerfully with your ideal customers. Study professional salespeople. Go to YouTube and find popular presentations salespeople have made to audiences through the years. I'm not just talking about product launches either. Even TED and XOXO are basically sales presentations, although their purpose is to sell an idea instead of a product. There are multiple sales styles, as varied as the salespeople themselves, but any effective salesperson can truly convey the passion behind their work. You don't have to be the ShamWow guy. Steve Jobs was equally effective in communicating his passion to an audience. Your job is to find the sales style you admire, and then model everything that makes that style successful. Work on your body language. Body language says everything without saying anything. If your head is down, your voice is low, and your body is drooped into itself, you will come across as sad and dispassionate to your intended audience. If you can look up, smile, and push your shoulders back, you will come across confident and passionate to everybody, including yourself. Model the sales style you found in Step 4. Notice the body language of the people who use it, and how it works to convey their message. Create a persona. In real life, I'm a miserable curmudgeon with a low, monotonous voice, and I hate to smile. But when I go to a con, I'm a bubbly, smiling fool with a higher octave, engaging voice. What people see in public is not who I really am at home. They see the persona I've created to make the public like me and want to buy my products. I force my voice half an octave higher, because people find higher voices more pleasant to the ears and less intimidating. I smile because people prefer buying from people in a good mood. I make sure to vary my pitch and tone, because people are turned off by monotony. I worked hard on the worst parts of my personality, the parts people didn't like, until they turned into strengths. Then I turned those strengths into a persona I use to engage with the public. This isn't lying. It's molding your personality so it's the best reflection of yourself. Try it out. Once you have a fully realized persona and know the why behind your passion, it's time to try it out on the world. Don't worry if it doesn't feel natural at first. Conveying your passion naturally takes time. The most important part is not to give up. People can forgive a lot of flaws if you just show a massive amount of passion for what you do. Passion is one of the most important tools in any salesperson's toolkit. Making great content is essential, but showing enthusiasm for your project is what sets you apart. Anybody can talk about the whats and the hows of their work, but what really matters to customers is why you do what you do. If you can make an emotionally impassioned plea for why you love your work, you'll be able to make your potential customers love it too, and if they love it, they'll be more likely to buy it. Understanding basic buying triggers at a convention. The good news with sales is that people want to buy things. They actually want to help businesses succeed and find cool stuff in the process. The problem is that people are also inherently lazy and skeptical of the unknown. The key to sales is making sure a customer's desire to help out and to find cool products outweighs their laziness and skepticism. One way to effectively overcome laziness is through the use of buying triggers. Buying triggers have been used by every company that has ever existed to build their brand. Once you learn about buying triggers, you will see them everywhere. This is a bit like seeing the code underneath the matrix. There are 6 essential buying triggers which have stood the test of time. Commitment. When somebody willingly commits to joining your community, they are more likely to buy your product. This is the main value to people joining your mailing list, or wearing a button, or even taking a flyer. They make a commitment when performing that action. It signifies they are part of your community. The more actions they take, the more commitment they build. Every time they open a newsletter from you and don't unsubscribe, they are affirming that commitment. Every time they like one of your tweets or share a Facebook post, they are affirming their commitment to your brand again and again. The more you can enforce that commitment through words and actions, the more likely you are to have an enthusiastic ambassador for your brand, one who buys all your stuff. Reciprocity. When you do something nice for somebody, they want to help you. That's just human nature. Knowing this, you need to provide value for your potential customer before you ever ask for a sale. Once you have provided incredible value through advice or some sort of free content, then people will gladly give you money because you have helped them and treated them like a human being. Social proof. Human beings want to be part of the in crowd. If you can prove that other people are using your product, everybody else will want to use it too. The hardest sales to make at conventions are the first ones. Once there are people running around the show floor with your product, other people are more likely to want it as well. Your work becomes valuable to a customer because other people saw the value in it already. People want to buy what their peers bought. They don't want to be left out in the cold. If you can show your customer that people they like and respect use your product, then you are more likely to convince them to buy it too. Scarcity. When you limit the available quantity of a product, customers become increasingly likely to make a buying decision in the moment. People believe products will be around forever and that they can always buy it later. When they realize a product is in limited supply, they are forced to make an immediate decision. This works wonders for people sitting on the fence about buying your product, and also for people who desperately want your product but need a little push to finally take action. Authority. If you can demonstrate that you are an expert in your field, people are more likely to buy your product over somebody else's. This is how you stand out above every other creative, doing exactly what you do. They choose you because you are an expert in your field. To prove your expertise, it's important to have consistently high-selling products for a long time, and it helps if you're able to teach other people how to do what you do. Another way is to write guest posts on other blogs, share your work on podcasts, or speak on panels. You can also use platforms like Medium and Kickstarter to build expertise, as the platform's authority can be transferred to you. Liking. If somebody has a positive connection to you, they are more likely to buy from you. Think about it. You are more inclined to buy from somebody you like than somebody you don't care about, right? Of course you are. The truth is that 10% of people will like you, 10% of people will hate you, and 80% will feel nothing for you. Your job is to focus on selling to the 10% who like you, while nudging some of that 80% from indifference toward liking you. All of these buying triggers are essential for the long-term growth of your business. They are powerful on their own, but if you can mix them together, you will increase your sales exponentially. Some of these triggers take time to build into your business. Authority and social proof won't happen overnight. Others, like scarcity and commitment, you can build into your sales funnel today. Even if it takes time to seed some of these triggers into your business, it's important to have a plan to incorporate every one of them eventually. Nail your pitch. Go make this pitch your own, so that it feels comfortable as you are giving it. Get to know your own selling style. Then give it a try in a low-risk setting, like a free book signing or a library meet and greet. Once it's starting to work, you're ready to try a small signing. Chapter 2. Why sell at live events? There is no substitute for getting out in front of humans and talking about yourself and your products. Not only are in-person sales easier than online sales, but you can also see the eyes of your fans when they connect with your work. Conventions are also a great way to meet other creators and realize that you are not alone in the world. I worked with an artist at a couple of shows, and after both, she told me that it was the first time she didn't feel alone and that there might be a place for her in the world. That is what a convention can do for you as well. It's a place to celebrate your weirdness with other people and get new fans in the process. I am around authors all day, and my brain used to be consumed with thoughts that every human was an author like me. When you think like that, it's hard to get excited about finding new readers because you just assume they don't exist. I mean, who else could there be to buy my books if everybody is an author? Why would they want to buy my books when they're trying to sell their own? Ever thought like that? It plagued me for years, but one moment changed all of that for me. I'm used to doing conventions and networking events full of entertainment professionals, but one night I was at a party full of people from my wife's industry, not mine, and it showed me the way I was thinking was completely ridiculous. Because here's the thing, there were hundreds of people at the party. Yet not one of them were authors. I'm not saying I talked to every attendee, but I talked to a couple dozen, and all of them said the same thing. They weren't writers. In fact, they were baffled at how I could write things from my imagination. In fact, they told me time and time again that they were completely not creative. Think about that. I was in a room full of a couple hundred people, and none of them were authors. Almost all of them were readers though, and most of them told me they read my genres too, which means a whole bunch of them were my ideal readers. That opened my eyes. It made me realize that most of the people in the world weren't authors, and that changed everything for me. I was spending all my time stuck in a bubble, and believed that because most of my friends were authors, that meant most people in the world must be authors too. How often do you think that everybody does what you do? All the time, right? Well, it's not true. The truth is that most people don't do the thing you do. It just seems like it, and because of that it feels like your market is saturated, but that's because we're all stuck in our own bubbles. We have to break out of that. There are 7 billion people in this world, and most of them don't do what you do. Not even close. It's a huge world out there, and the market isn't flooded. You're just stuck in a bubble just like the rest of us, and you have to pop it. Why sell books at live events? Lots of independent authors, especially fiction authors, do very well in ebook and at online retailers. If you are successful there, or even if you aren't, you might ask the question, why should I sell at live events to begin with? This is a poignant question, especially when you are told that you should focus your efforts on online sales of ebooks through retailers. Here are some reasons that you might want to try selling at events and signings, even if you are already seeing success online. You get to meet readers. Sometimes it's fun to just get out there and actually meet readers. Maybe they are fan-personing over meeting you, always a good feeling. But even if you are finding your readers through events, it's a kind and humbling experience to go out and actually talk to people interested in your books. You become more memorable. It's a lot easier to remember an author you met in person than a faceless name online, especially when the person ends up liking your book and wanting to find more. Additionally, print books shoot to the top of a to-be-read (TBR) pile because they are physical objects taking up space in the reader's life. They organically serve as the reminder to sample. It's generally easier to speak to people in person. Marketing online is generally less intuitive than speaking to people in person. You've been doing the latter your entire life. Talking to people and handing them your book is a much easier connection to make. It's fun. As you get comfortable talking about your books and meeting your readers, you'll find that live events are fun. It's a faster way to establish a rapport and turn someone into a fan. Finding readers online is a harder proposition than finding readers in person, where your physical presence alone can make an impression, in addition to your book catching their attention. You can quickly figure out your pitch for each book in your catalog. There is absolutely nothing that will teach you how to market your books, like asking for money from someone for your work on the spot. You'll be able to tell immediately whether a pitch is in alignment with the actual book by the look of understanding or the look of confusion on someone's face. Why authors don't sell their books at live events and why they should. Here are some reasons why authors don't sell at events, and the counter-argument to help you break through the little voice in your head that is whispering no, despite your interest and curiosity. They don't hold inventory. Inventory requires storage space, but if you hold a small enough inventory, it's manageable for most people. You can get your inventory paid for by using Kickstarter to do print runs, and you can get rid of your inventory through Kickstarter, Patreon, Substack, direct sales on your website, and drop shipping through a company like Printful or Fulfillment by Amazon, FBA. They don't have merchandise. There's a section in this book on merchandise, and like the books themselves, you build up your inventory of merchandise over time. They don't have the setup, displays, payments, and more. You will need to get your setup situated, which I talk about in Chapter 6, Setting Up Your Table. You can get this funded through a Kickstarter campaign, and you can again start small to order various pieces of your setup. You can also pay for more elaborate or branded setups through the profits from your conference tables. They don't want to travel. Shipping your setup is a huge pain and expensive, which is why I recommend that you focus on shows that are within driving distance for you. I talk more about how to find these shows in Chapter 4, Finding Places to Exhibit At. There are tons of options, and most people can easily fill their calendars with events just from their local area within a driving radius of 4 to 5 hours. They are afraid of rejection. Selling books anywhere is a numbers game, and this is no different in person. Not everyone who stops by your table will buy something, and even the best salespeople are only going to sell to 30 to 50% of the people who stop by. Get your book selling at events and signings. Despite the challenges with selling books in person, there are lots of benefits that make it worth it. The key is to not get intimidated and work through challenges one at a time. We spend the rest of this book working through those challenges, so you can confidently do the thing you want to do. Sell more of your books in person at events and signings. Chapter 10. Next Steps. Thank you so much for picking up this book and learning more about how you as an author can use live events and signings to sell more books and build your author brand and career. We hope we've given you a lot to chew on and shown you the many ways with which you can make sales in person. What next? Please send your questions and suggestions to Monica's team at team@theworldneedsyourbook.com. We will get your message to the right person. We'd love to help you out. As you build your audience and author platform, we encourage you to consider our other books about selling print and selling direct to fans. Selling direct from your website. Get your book selling on your website. Book sales supercharged #7. Selling in print. Get your book selling in print. Book sales supercharged #8. Selling on Kickstarter. Get your book selling on Kickstarter. Book sales supercharged #9. Kickstart your novel. If you've ever wanted to use Kickstarter to support your author dreams, we offer a ton of freebies and training for Kickstarter at kickstartyournovel.com. The Book Sales Supercharged Series. If you want to dig into other platforms that are useful to authors, we encourage you to continue the series. We have co-authored several books together. Get your book selling with Facebook, Book Sales Supercharged #12. Get your book selling with advanced Facebook advertising, Book Sales Supercharged #18. Get your book selling in print, Book Sales Supercharged #8. Get your book selling with cross-promotion, Book Sales Supercharged #11. Get your book selling at events, Book Sales Supercharged #10. Get your book selling on Kickstarter, Book Sales Supercharged #9. The series is available at all retailers. We are aggressively wide over here, but if you want the best deal, there are also large bundles of the book on the website. To learn more, go to theworldneedsyourbook.com/shop. If you want to just learn more about the series, you can also go to the website, which lists all the books in the series plus links to everywhere they are available to be purchased. To learn more, go to theworldneedsyourbook.com/wide. Russell's training courses and books. Russell has an incredible set of courses at Wannabe Press under the brand, The Complete Creative. Some of the courses he teaches include: create profitable Facebook ads, build a rabid fan base, crush it on Kickstarter. You can check out these courses here. wannabepress.teachable.com/. Monica's The Productive Novelist books. In addition to the Book Sales Supercharged series, Monica also has books that are strategy-focused on things like craft, book marketing, and more. The Productive Novelist series is 14 books spanning all topics related to writing, editing, publishing, and marketing your books. There are also several advanced books in this series for those who intend to make writing a career and want to build their businesses for longevity. The content in this series has been tested by thousands of authors when it was originally published as the Growth Hacking for Storytellers series. We've since updated all the content and added several chapters to the newer editions. To learn more and see what we have to offer, go to theworldneedsyourbook.com/shop. The Productive Novelist channel, podcast, and blog. Monica shares tons of free content on my YouTube channel, podcast, and blog. Some people like to get right to the solution with a course or a book, while others like to receive a drip week to week through my YouTube channel or podcast feed. Please connect with her and subscribe to her channels. Podcast, theworldneedsyourbook.com/podcast. YouTube, theworldneedsyourbook.com/YouTube. Blog, theworldneedsyourbook.com/blog. Wide newsletter, theworldneedsyourbook.com/Substack. Your feedback, please. Our goal for writing this book is to help get more authors up to speed on how to use Facebook to build their careers. We would love to know how we did. There are 2 ways to leave feedback. Reviews. If you loved this book, we can always use an honest review on our public retailer pages, where other people looking for the books can see what real people think of them. Choose your retailer and leave a review here. theworldneedsyourbook.com/reviewbus10. Feedback form. If you have anything you'd like to share privately, please feel free to fill out our feedback form here. theworldneedsyourbook.com/feedback. All answers are private, unless you say we can use the responses publicly in our marketing materials. Spread the word. Can you think of 2 people who could use this book in their lives? Maybe they've published their first couple books, but they're having trouble finding a market or audience for them. Maybe they have a lot of books, but now they are ready to build their audience in unique and surprising ways. Maybe they have been at this publishing thing for a while, and they're trying to branch out into print or live events and signings. If so, we would love it if you could connect them to this book, so they too can learn the ins and outs of selling books in person. Thanks again for reading. Be the igniter.